Watch Dogs has been a game that has surrounded itself in controversy, it seems, since well before it ever truly came out. In 2012 at E3, we saw this game played, quote-unquote, for the first time. And here's some of that gameplay. It is phenomenal looking. It looks fantastic. However, as we got closer and closer to release, which ended up being in 2014, 2015, I believe, we see this game slowly downgrade its graphics. And for some reason, no one quite knew. And this is a trend that Ubisoft would continue for a good long while and had been doing for a while before. So, this game is just the biggest talking head of that, as it has the biggest downgrade in graphics. But the question is it as truly as bad as it seems? Or is it just people being people? I guess we're going to really find out today. This game and I have some history. This is one of the first games I ever really played in full on my PlayStation 4, and is one of the first games I ever really tried to Let's Play on my main channel that I completed. Which led me to having a burnout with YouTube and still affects me to this day. I remember from the game itself that it took itself way too seriously, and it felt like it lacked a sense of self-identity in its gameplay. It's been a few years from that, though, and maybe it's not as bad as I remember. So today, on That Game Review Show, I'm Terrell, and I'm going to be taking a look at the game Watch Dogs. Through the opening cutscene, we get to meet our main protagonist and antagonist, Aiden and Damien, a hacker duo gone sour who now share a real deal of spite for one another after a bank job gone wrong. After this falling out, hitmen come to kill Aiden while he's driving around with his niece in the back. Aiden lives, but his niece unfortunately doesn't. It's now Aiden's mission to find the person who did it all and keep it a secret from his sister, while at the same time keeping his sister safe. From here, you actually get to start playing the game while sneaking around a baseball stadium avoiding the cops, but first you gotta meet Jordy, a character who I could honestly care less about. But you're sneaking around a baseball stadium trying to figure out who knows what because someone knows something about the thing. And I'm already bored with the story because you know from the very beginning of the opening cutscene who had your niece killed and who's doing the thing. It's not a surprise. It's just, there's no mystery to the story. You know who did it. There's no real twists. They try to make it look like there will be. They try and make some more characters interesting. But there's nothing really of substance to the story outside of that. They've ruined it already. Had they had never showed us who Damien was, or maybe we were just there, maybe it would have been different, and then, you know, we could have had this big reveal of who Damien is and the elusive Damien. But no, it's just, there really is just nothing there story-wise for this. I guess it's fair to call this game linear, but a better way to think about it is that it's really just drawn out. The main story just takes so much longer than it needs to, and not to mention, it is an Ubisoft game, so of course, it's an open world with just a bunch of side quests that pad out the game even longer than it needs to be. Having to drive around the city sometimes becomes a chore. The next mission can sometimes be on the opposite side of Chicago. You'll have to go there, obviously, so you have to drive across the city. Now, you could stop and do side things along the way that really have no incentive, but they kind of do. It's weird because it's marketed as kind of an incentive. Let me explain. The incentive that you are given for doing a lot of your side quests is you get an increase in your public reputation as the vigilante, which Aiden, I guess, wants. These are presented both as things to do on the map as well as random encounters as you go around hacking people. Here's the problem. The only way for Aiden's reputation to drop in the eyes of the civilian population is literally he has to go around hurting and killing and like going out of his way to actually hurt people. And when you do that, there's no incentive because the only thing you can do is become more and more favorable. So there's no real good versus evil side of you. You either do the good thing and become more good, or you don't and you still stay good because you're already in the good graces of the people from the start of the game. without that true sense of morality, like in the game, it overall just makes exploring the open world so much less interesting, which is kind of sad because this open world is kind of fascinating and I think fun to look around. Personally, I've never truly been to Chicago, except if you count the airport, but you're in Chicago and it's pretty darn close to the real thing. Obviously, I think there's not as many similarities, or there's things that have changed to make it flow as a game open world, similar to like Grand Theft Auto in a way, but it's really upsetting because being able to go around and explore a very almost living and vibrant Chicago, even though it's not the way it was intended to look, is impressive and fascinating, and I want to spend more time here and get to know the city and maybe go and travel there someday. However, it's just an Ubisoft open world sandbox. It's a bunch of towers, turn on the towers, do the random objectives to get the good boy points. You know what I'm talking about. It's been harped on so much from other reviewers, I just can't bear to go in detail. The core of the missions is to normally maneuver around some of the areas, then hack something and escape the area. This is varied, but you're gonna go around killing someone or good old tailing missions. Those are your variations. I personally find it easiest to stealth around with the suppressed pistol and using the environment to hack things and then pop up and shoot people in the head. That's pretty much your gameplay in a nutshell. Now, the game does give you a couple times where you can go in, guns blazing, just killing some fools. I will say to still aim for the head, though. In this game, it's not really fair to go around guns blazing and stuff like that. Because if you want to just do that, you're going to need cover, because those enemies fucking fire a lot, and they fire fast. You will go from alive to dead faster than you can snap sometimes. It's absurd. So, always know where your cover is if you want to do that method. But, I still say, it's easier to just stealth around and shoot people that way. You don't have nearly as much fire coming at you, and you don't have to keep dodging shit. And it's just overall easier. However, some side missions do come with the fun little addition of being able to drive around. I personally have to say that cars in this game are anything but fun to drive. They feel like awkwardly floaty, they go really fast, kind of quick, and then when you need to turn, even if you slow down a lot, you turn wider than a semi-truck, and you'll hit the nearest wall in like 0.2 seconds. Bikes, they handle better overall, but like you'll still have that really wide turning radius. They turn a little tighter, but it's still wide. So if you accidentally are going too fast around that turn and you ran into something, you're going to go further flying than you ever would have dreamed of back in GTA 4. Yeesh. It's a little rough on the driving mechanics here, people. Now, you might be saying, well, that's all well and good. I can get used to the weird driving mechanics of the game, and you know what? That's not going to be that bad. But you might be asking yourself, Terrell, how does the overall game control, how does it feel to be playing as Aiden Pierce? And in short, it's a third-person shooter. That's what it is, but it's kind of strange. This game does not share the typical control scheme of a third-person shooter. So, when you are trying to learn the game and stuff like that, you must learn the new control scheme, which is familiar enough to where it's a very easy one to pick up, but it's the few little things that they did change to try and make it different that really throw you off. And from my understanding, this does not continue into the next couple of games, so I don't know what they were going for here, but it's more of like a weird claw design where like Y is to interact with things and start things. You know, you hack with X, but you don't take cover with B, you vault with B, and like you take cover with A. So it becomes this weird little dichotomy of you're in the moment of like a shootout or something like that, and you'll accidentally hit B and you'll vault over the thing. Then you gotta hit A and you may not go back into a safe place for cover, and it just kind of does a weird thing. It could just be me that has this problem, but overall it's like it feels like any other third-person shooter. It's just in those few moments where you're not really completely focused on the fact that the controls have changed for your buttons, that it's really going to be noticeable that it's not fully the normal third-person shooter. As most games really like to try and do these days, Watch Dogs offers you a skill and progression tree as more of a ways to keep you interested in coming back and making sure you're playing through and really earning these skill points to unlock cooler things to do around the map. This is nothing new for Ubisoft. They're known to do this in most of their games. Go around, do menial things, or play through the game, and you will progress and unlock these new features that you'll need to complete the game. It's not exactly revolutionary, and it never will be, but it's nice to have this. You get to break down your skill tree into hacking, craftables, shooting, driving, and then there's one more that just truly escaped me while I was writing this review. But the one that is really important for me, I would say, is the hacking skill tree. Through the hacking skill tree, you're able to go through and just add more battery to your overall hacking ability. The more battery something costs to hack, the harder that hack is to do, but the more the reward, in theory. As well as if you run out, it takes a while to replenish, so it's nice to get those. As well as the jamming comms, the hacking of the bank accounts. These little things that really don't seem like they're going to affect the gameplay that much, that just overall do make it a lot easier, because you can distract a guy, pop him, you can go run around the city, which I like to do, and just steal people's bank accounts, then hop to the nearest ATM and just pull out all of their money. And I do mean all of it. You just pull it all out at once, then you go out to the gun store, you buy the guns that you need, and you're able to just fly right through the game super early on. Whereas, the shooting skill tree, yeah, it helps. You're able to hold more weapons, and crafting allows you to craft new and cooler things, which those are pretty useful. I always forget to use them while I played, but they are pretty useful in the grand scheme of things. Being able to just hack in and cause a TGRS blackout is just phenomenal, and I truly, truly love it. But I always forgot to use them because they're not exactly necessary to get through anything. It's like they're just there to be there. And that's just kind of a recurring theme with this game. Now, what about the police? What happens if you do actually have the police get called and they have to, come after you and chase after you? What is that like? How do I escape? What are my best routes to go through and do that with? Now, what I can tell you from my many hours of playing this game is that the best way to lose the cops is to never have the cops, because the cops are fucking dumb, and their police vehicles are also mighty and powerful. However, should you have the unfortunate case of having the cops called on you for some particular reason, which is actually easy to avoid, the best way to do it is to drive to the nearest body of water, get on a boat, and literally drive the boat away from the land. They will eventually just give up, lose you, turn around, and leave. That's it. That's as easy as it comes. The police are just not prepared. And you'd think with their TGRS system, which is a core thing in the game, the entire game is based around the TGRS system, they'd be able to track you through water. But they can't. It's not possible. It just doesn't happen. So that's the police in a small brief nutshell. But you've heard me mention time and time again in this review TGRS. Now, what is TGRS truly in the grand scheme of the story? So Chicago has enveloped itself into being the first technological city, roughly. and its entire grid and system now operates off CTOS. Everyone is registered through CTOS. Everyone's information is transferred through CTOS. Everything is now easily obtainable through the phone. So, with that being the case, it's really easy for people to tap into it and just kind of fuck around with shit because it's all in just ginormous fucking servers that are everywhere. Every building seems to have a server. No matter how run down it is, it has a giant server room. And it's fucking weird because I don't know half rundown buildings that have a giant ass server room. But you know what? To each their own. And most of your hacks are truly based around the CTOS system. There's not much outside of that hacking-wise you do. Everything is revolving around the fact that you are in Chicago where you have the CTOS system at your fingertips and everybody's personal information and weird quirks. So, generally, that's all that really matters for the CTOS system. There's not much else it can do besides, shut down an entire power grid. Yeah, I'd say that's pretty impressive. Honestly, Watch Dogs really doesn't have that much of a satisfying conclusion and ending. Like I said at the beginning of the review, there's not really anything that you don't see coming. Yes, there are a couple of diversions to kind of make the game longer and to introduce you to like crime syndicates and every checkpoint it needs to hit to be a practically GTA clone. But you know who it is from the beginning and there's no surprises at all when it comes to the final end of the story. Damien is the guy who's done everything. His buddy, your buddy Jordy from the beginning, double crosses you because of money. And then you shoot the boy, Damien, as well as you throw Jordy over the side. Spoiler alert. But literally, it is by far some of the laziest writing in a story I've seen in a very long time. I'm going to be honest. I remember that because, one, I played this game through already, and two, I had to double look it up because I had forgotten. So I had just looked it up because I cannot bring myself to continue playing through the game. It is so boring. I played about 3/4 of the way through that game, and I just couldn't finish it. I just can't. It's so boring. There's a couple things that kind of redeem it, and they're kind of interesting, and would have made just a better game. But this is not one of them. But what are those redeeming factors, Tro? Like, what can save me from this game? Fucking around in the city. I know I've said it's not fun to explore the city. However, when you're dicking around and your intention is to just dick around and you don't care about the rest of the game, it's super fun. You just kill people, you hack people, you cause CTOS blackouts, or you find one of the digital trip vendors. Those guys make some interesting stuff. You take a digital trip, you go in a giant spider robot, you go around the city destroying everything. It's fantastic. I highly encourage that become its own game. That would be a good, fun, 3-hour game. Not a 24+ hour game in some cases, but a good 3-hour game. Ubisoft, make something based around the giant spider robot, please. I need it more. Please? Honestly, in closing, there's not much else I can really say about Watch Dogs, and I've tried to keep it as short as I could. I've even added a little bit more than I normally would talk about for a game like this. I personally really was hoping I would come back and see something different with Watch Dogs. The game itself had a lot of true potential, and I really kind of wish I could enjoy it more. It's just too serious. It takes itself far too serious, even for me. And I'm fucking not funny prick. There's nothing funny about me. There's just not enough here to truly keep you invested long term. And it's really upsetting because its setting itself is super interesting and did lead to really good games that I want to take a look at as well. I'm actually excited for Watch Dogs Legion because I've heard good things about Watch Dogs 2, which I plan to play. Hold on.
I'm just going to keep going with this one. Plan to play here pretty soon for you guys. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I look forward to actually going through that game in full. And so if it takes longer, it takes longer. But you know what? I'm really excited. There is one other caveat that I forgot to mention in the full-on review because it didn't really fit anywhere. The overall good graphics that this game once came out with, they're still there. You just need to mod the game a little bit. I planned to go through and do this. I was going to do it before this review, but then I got sidetracked with work and things like that, and just never really did it. But apparently it doesn't affect performance. You know, Ubisoft, just release the free patch to the game. Like, honestly, if it's a little prettier to look at, maybe I'll want to stay in the game. I don't know, just a thought. While Watch Dogs itself is not the creme de la creme, the perfect game, or even as good as I was hoping it was going to be coming back to it, I wouldn't say pick it up. If you can find it and Watch Dogs 2 for a decent bundle, which Steam does offer when it's a big sale and Ubisoft is part of it, you can get both games for like $8. I would say pick it up then. You might be able to get enough enjoyment out of it by going through and tinkering with the stuff and just fooling around in the main, like, open world. Outside of that, though, Watch Dogs isn't really worth a purchase at any capacity, I think. Just buy Watch Dogs 2. I've heard it's better. Actually, don't do that. Wait for me to review it. Speaking of more reviews, next week is Matthew's week. Come out and check us out again then. Same darn day, same darn time. 3 o'clock on Wednesday, people. We're always trying to get them out by then. If we're a little late, we apologize. So I want to thank you guys for watching another video here on That Game Review Show. If you enjoyed it, please don't forget to leave it a like. If you're new, subscribe here so we can have your support. So maybe one day we can all have purpose in our lives for making these videos. Thank you guys again, and I'll see you in a couple weeks.